esteemed leaders, fellow Africans, and citizens of our great continent. Today, we gather in a moment of deep reflection, united by a shared vision for justice, accountability, and the advancement of our people. The unfolding events in Kenya, a nation long seen as a beacon of stability and progress in East Africa, have stirred the conscience of many across our continent. These events compel us to confront a matter of grave concern, one that transcends borders and speaks to the very core of our collective African values. Today, I stand before you to urge the African Union to launch an immediate and thorough investigation into the actions of President William Ruto and his administration in response to the protests sweeping across Kenya. Protests that embody the legitimate grievances of a people demanding fairness, opportunity, and dignity. First, let me acknowledge the resilience and spirit of the Kenyan people. For decades, Kenya has stood as a symbol of democratic aspiration, navigating its diverse ethnic complexities to emerge as a hub of economic and cultural dynamism. Yet today, we witness a nation in turmoil. Its streets are filled with the voices of the youth, the disenfranchised, and the disillusioned, all calling for change. What began in June 2024 as protests against proposed tax hikes has since grown into a broader movement against systemic corruption, economic stagnation, and police brutality. The cries of "Ruto must go" echo not just in Nairobi but in the hearts of all who believe in the promise of a just Africa. The scale of these protests is unprecedented. Over the past year, more than 100 lives have been lost, countless others injured, and hundreds arbitrarily arrested. The Kenya National Commission on Human Rights has documented these tragedies, reporting 31 deaths on a single day, July 7, 2025. Among the victims was a 12-year-old girl in Kiamu, struck by a stray bullet in her own home. Another, Boniface Kariuki, a 22-year-old mask vendor, was shot at point-blank range during a rally against police brutality. The death of blogger Albert Ojwang in police custody last month further inflamed public anger, with an autopsy revealing head trauma and bruises, contradicting official claims of suicide. These are not just numbers. They are stories of lives cut short, families shattered, and a nation's trust betrayed. It is in this context that I, as a leader committed to Pan-Africanism and the empowerment of our people, call upon the African Union to act. The AU, as the guardian of our continent's democratic ideals and human rights, has both a moral and institutional duty to investigate the actions of President Ruto's administration. The allegations of excessive force, extrajudicial killings, and abductions demand scrutiny. President Ruto's directive ordering police to shoot protesters in the legs, to break their legs, and prevent property damage is not only a human rights violation but a dangerous escalation that threatens Kenya's democracy and sets a perilous precedent for Africa. Let us be clear. The right to protest is enshrined in the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, a document that binds us all. Article 11 guarantees the right to assemble freely, and Article 4 protects the right to life. When a government responds to peaceful demonstrations with live ammunition, tear gas, and water cannons, it violates these sacred principles. When a president publicly instructs security forces to maim citizens rather than engage in dialogue, he betrays the essence of leadership. These actions cannot be dismissed as internal matters. They stain our collective conscience and challenge the values we uphold as Africans. The AU must investigate not only the use of force, but also the root causes of these protests. The Kenyan people are not protesting for unrest's sake. They are driven by deep frustrations, a cost of living crisis eroding wages, youth unemployment stifling potential, and a government perceived as tone-deaf to their needs. President Ruto campaigned in 2022 as a champion of the hustler nation, vowing to uplift the poor and fight corruption. Yet his administration's policies, aggressive tax hikes, ballooning debt, and perceived tolerance for graft have fueled disillusionment. The withdrawn 2024 finance bill, which proposed taxes on essentials like bread and mobile money, was seen as a betrayal. The termination of a $2 billion airport deal with the Adani Group, only after public outcry, further exposed a government accused of favoring elite interests over the public good. Moreover, allegations of state-sponsored violence cannot be ignored. Opposition leaders, including former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, accused the government of deploying unmarked vehicles and armed gangs to opposition strongholds, a tactic reminiscent of authoritarian regimes. Civil society reports abductions of activists, medical workers, and influencers, with some subjected to torture. These are not the actions of a confident government, but of one clinging to power through fear. The AU, committed to peace, security, and good governance, must not look away. Its Peace and Security Council has the authority to address threats to stability, and the African Commission on Human and People's Rights can investigate violations. I call for a joint mission, independent experts and continental representatives, to conduct a transparent investigation into the use of lethal force by Kenyan security forces, the circumstances of abductions and extrajudicial killings, the government's response to legitimate grievances. This investigation must be swift, impartial, and conclusive, with findings made public to ensure accountability. To those who argue this constitutes interference in Kenya's sovereignty, I say, sovereignty is not a shield for impunity. The AU was founded on collective responsibility, where the welfare of one nation's people is the concern of all. When a government's actions risk destabilizing a nation and crushing its youth's democratic hopes, the AU must intervene, not to dictate, but to uphold the standards we set for ourselves. Kenya's stability is vital not just for its 57 million citizens, but for all of East Africa, a region of economic and diplomatic significance. I also urge the AU to engage in proactive dialogue with Kenya's government, opposition, and civil society. These protests are leaderless, youth-driven, and fueled by social media, a new era of activism bypassing traditional politics. This generation, born after multi-party democracy's return in 1992, is educated, connected, and uncompromising. They demand systemic change, not temporary concessions. The AU must facilitate inclusive dialogue, ensuring Kenya's youth are heard and that the government responds with reform, not repression. To my fellow African leaders, I urge you, let us stand together in defense of justice, democracy, and the future of our continent. The time to act is now. Thank you. Reflecting on the broader implications of this crisis, we must recognize that Kenya is not alone. Across our continent, young people are rising, demanding accountability, economic opportunity, and an end to corruption. From Burkina Faso to Nigeria, from South Africa to Sudan, the youth are the heartbeat of Africa's future. If we fail to listen, if we respond with force instead of understanding, we risk alienating the very generation that will shape our destiny. The protests in Kenya serve as both a warning and a call to recommit to justice, equity, and good governance. Let me share a perspective rooted in my own journey as a leader in Burkina Faso. We, too, have faced challenges, security threats, economic hardship, and the weight of historical injustices. But leadership is not about silencing dissent, it is about engaging with it. When our people took to the streets, we chose dialogue, policies to empower women and youth, and a commitment to transparency. The contrast with Kenya's current path is stark. While Burkina Faso sought to rebuild trust through inclusion, Kenya's government has chosen confrontation, deepening alienation and instability. I do not speak to judge, but to appeal to our shared humanity. President Ruto, I address you directly. Your people are not your enemies. They are the soul of Kenya, the dreamers and builders of its future. Listen to them. Engage with them. Abandon violent rhetoric and embrace reconciliation. History will judge us not by our power, but by our legacy. To the Kenyan people, your courage inspires us all. Your fight against corruption and for a better future is a beacon for Africa. Do not lose hope. Your struggle is ours. The African Union must stand with you, ensuring justice and amplifying your voices. This crisis extends beyond Kenya. Africa is the youngest continent, with over 60% of our population under 25. Our youth are tech-savvy, globally connected, and acutely aware of systemic injustices. They see our potential yet face unemployment, inequality, and corruption daily. Kenya's youth unemployment rate exceeds 35%, a challenge echoed from Accra to Addis Ababa, Dakar to Dar es Salaam. The AU must act. Agenda 2063's vision of good governance, democracy, and human rights cannot remain aspirational. It must be our blueprint. I propose a permanent AU Youth Advisory Council, integrating young voices into decision-making. In Kenya, such a council could mediate between government and protesters, preventing further escalation. Additionally, the AU must strengthen real-time human rights monitoring. A rapid response mechanism within the African Commission on Human and People's Rights could deploy fact-finding missions at the first sign of unrest, de-escalating tensions, and saving lives. Economic solidarity is also critical. Kenya's crisis stems from debt, inflation, and unemployment, challenges many African nations share. The AU and regional bodies like the East African Community should explore debt relief and technical assistance, showing Africa stands together in adversity. To the international community, we seek partnership, not paternalism. While global organizations document abuses, Africa must lead in resolving its challenges. The AU's cultural and historical insight positions it best to mediate. We welcome international support, expertise, funding, amplifying Kenyan voices, but the AU must steer this process. In closing, I urge the AU to launch an immediate investigation into President Ruto's administration. Let this be a step toward healing, accountability, and restoring trust. No leader is above the people. No government thrives without their consent. To my fellow leaders, this is our warning. Suppressing youth risks Africa's future. We must recommit to justice.